We're going to start on the top right with his favorite 3-letter agency hat. It's MYB, Mind Your Biz. Make sure you check them out, sub.myb.lol. Gary Gensler came out with some actually kind of support for the CFTC to oversee the regulation of Bitcoin. This is a quote from him. Regulating bodies need to collaborate to establish clear policies around cryptocurrency technology and investments. And this was mostly remarks dealing with Bitcoin, a little bit less clear on ETH, but he said the only asset he would classify as a commodity would be Bitcoin. Now, mind your biz, we saw Bitcoin take a massive pump here. You know, many are speculating it's in response to his words here. Bitcoin outpumping all its peers, while oftentimes when Bitcoin pumps, its alts will outperform here. But he's kind of giving bearish news for alts while bullish news for Bitcoin. But Bitcoin is dragging up all the other coins just like it always does. Are people aware of, you know, what's going on? Is this maybe a short opportunity? I mean, how are you reacting to, even though this is extremely bearish for alts, in my opinion, they're just pumping alongside Bitcoin. Is this just forever going to happen? Bitcoin goes up, we all go up?
Yeah, I think so. So first off, DZ, thanks for having me back on the channel. It's always great to spend time with the Bit Squad, and especially with the other panelists on around the blockchain. I'm always very humbled to be placed on a panel with folks who are so intelligent and have such a diverse skill set in terms of the expertise they can speak to. As far as that question, is this something that that kind of signals correlation to Bitcoin? Well, yeah, Bitcoin is the king daddy when it comes to price action. Things do decorrelate every now and then, and that's fine. They're definitely decoupling in terms of price movement and in terms of especially fundamentals and roadmap items, milestones that are achieved by developer communities and by developer teams in the altcoin space. But when Bitcoin sneezes, crypto catches a cold. And the inverse is true. When Bitcoin's having a good day and smiles, that smile is contagious, right? So it is a cultural thing. Most of the world views Bitcoin, just the word Bitcoin, as being synonymous with cryptocurrency. So when you got the plebs who only have a $50 worth of spot purchased Bitcoin on a centralized exchange, they see crypto in the news and they get excited and think that it relates to their Bitcoin holdings. However, fledgling, right? Where they're just getting started with that investment down that path. Now, does this mean that it's a good time to short? Man, I don't know. Those aren't the kinds of calls that I'm very comfortable giving. That's not what Mind Your Biz does. We don't give forecasts. We don't give price targets per se. But I will say that the chart that we look at, we're zoomed way out to the one-day chart, the one-day candlesticks, and we have a trend line that, in my opinion and in my estimation, we're going to go lower. We do have more downside, and the market does need to bleed out more before it can recover properly. That said, CPI is going crazy. The base currency that we're denominating the value of Bitcoin in is kind of not what it was this time last year, and certainly not what it was this time 2 years ago. So it's hard to say if that's going to look like the usual correction that the 4-year halving cycle normally gives us. And even with the latest sort of macro environment, it's hard to say if that means we're going to see, the dreaded $9,000 Bitcoin or $11,000 Bitcoin that everybody's talking about. It might be higher than that because of the macro environment. So giving a target and saying, definitely short or definitely long, I'm really uncomfortable saying that, but I'm very comfortable personally setting some longer term targets lower than we are now.
Okay, yeah, personally, I'm still slightly leaning in that direction as well. Let's talk about Charles Hoskinson. Oh, nice little segue there. Charles just did a speech or a little live stream yesterday, 22 hours ago. It's not that long. It's about 12 and a half minutes here. And you can see here the title, Climate and Energy Implications of Crypto Assets in the United States. In this, he shared his opinion about the recent White House accusations being levied against the crypto industry and trying to crack down on all the energy-intensive cryptos out there. And he kind of floated out an idea that, according to him, could solve a lot of Bitcoin's issues. Now, I'm not saying he said this is what must happen, just kind of floating out some ideas. Cardano, not to get too technical, has some mechanisms to help proof of work chains. And I kind of want to go off on a tangent here. And mind your biz, I'm going to ask you because, mine is in your name. Ethereum, obviously proof of work, just like Bitcoin. And then Ethereum, though, is changing to proof of stake. I'm going to ask a third grade level question here, maybe even kindergarten.
Okay.
Why can't Bitcoin do the same?
That's a great question. I'm trying not to laugh because DZ, I don't want you to feel like it's personal.
Oh, okay. Every time I talk to you, I kind of feel like a third grader. So to be fair.
Oh, that's
because you paddled me last time you saw me.
What the? Okay.
Someone's got to coddle him.
This is getting way too personal. We don't talk about things that happen off camera.
Started everything.
All right, so
go ahead.
So as far as things that can be done to bring down the power consumption of networks like Bitcoin, what most people don't realize is that's already something that's in the works. In terms of the carbon footprint and the potential carbon savings and carbon offset of just recapturing, or the greenhouse gas emissions of just allowing for natural gas flares to go unchecked, right? Burning the natural gas off, the off-gassing from those drilling sites, that's totally devastating to the environment. Bitcoin is already attempting, or the Bitcoin network is already drawing in the capital interests of, say, ExxonMobil, British Petroleum, the other major drilling and oil and gas companies from around the world. And they're seeing that we can take something that's already part of our regular business operation that is normally a loss, like a cost center, because we have this opportunity cost of not capturing that energy, and we're harming the environment, and we can do away with all that because we already have those things in production, right? Like Bitcoin doesn't affect that. Bitcoin didn't cause that. The oil and gas industry did. But we can recapture that, and we can contribute to the security of Bitcoin's network by using proof of work mining machines on site. So you bring the machines to that site where the natural gas is either being off-gassed or it could be potentially flared instead. And believe it or not, just burning that off-gassing on site is less harmful to the environment than letting it spew out unchecked into the atmosphere. Well, Bitcoin fixes both those problems, actually, and all proof of work fixes both those problems. Instead of just spewing the off-gassing from these drilling sites into the atmosphere unchecked, and instead of just burning it, right, and leaving noxious fumes out in the atmosphere as well, you can recapture it, run it through a generator, use that energy to mine on site, because you can't route that power back to the nearest cities, if that makes sense. Sometimes you're so far removed, and most of the time for these drilling sites, you're so far removed from any kind of a meaningful grid that you have to use the power on site. Now, additionally, you can do all kinds of optimizations. You can do what's called cogeneration on site using the turbines that are attached directly to those generators to get upwards of 90% efficiency from those machines. Think about that. Anybody in the audience who understands automotive technology, for example, the motor inside of your car is not 90% efficient. These motors are, and they're recapturing what would potentially be devastating, ecologically devastating chemicals that are going to be poured into the atmosphere any other way. Bitcoin actually fixes that. Now, let me talk about what Charles Hoskinson is proposing now. Shout out to Matthias Fitzy, who's the person who's actually doing the research on this, by the way. I've got the abstract up. I've read through the white paper, and it's very interesting. We've been talking about proof of useful work for the better part of 4 years now. I went really far out of my way to talk to everybody who was using the Equihash algorithm when it became ASIC mineable. So I'm going to get a little bit more nerdy for your audience. This is beyond third grade.
Yeah, we're already down the path at this point.
Yeah, right. But here's the thing. I went really far out of my way to talk to any proof of work project in 2018 that appeared to be falling away from GPU mining into ASIC mining because of the relative centralization of that hardware. And we've been talking about the concept of proof of useful work since that time. And here's the third grade answer to this issue. When you try to create something called proof of useful work, you've got a serious problem that has yet to actually be solved in the real world. We still just have a white paper. That's what Charles is talking about, is a white paper. It's not proven in the real world. But here's the fundamental problem. You have proof of work, which is hashing algorithms. And then you have useful work in computers, which is general purpose computation, right? So these data centers, like what Amazon runs and like what Google runs, they do very different things, right? Proof of work mining is not generally useful, right? And general purpose computing is very useful, but it's not repeatable, and it can't be proven not to be duplicated. It's very hard to create the two in a merged scenario where you can prove that that generally useful compute that you did hasn't been duplicated or hasn't been somehow spoofed. Proof of useful work is an effort to merge those two things and prove in the same way that you have these hashing algorithms on networks right now, but through the use of hashes and a couple of other checks and balances, won't get too nerdy there, but to prove that the work that you did is not only valuable, but has not been duplicated. And it's still not proven. It's a cool idea, but in my opinion, no, it's not going to save Bitcoin. But Bitcoin could save the planet as it is right now.
Mind your biz, we think of Web 2 as old tech. It's just dinosaur stuff, you know. It's like your computer screen is still tube technology here. But then I also hear about, you know, we have systems, you know, server farms running on 60-year-old programming languages. Is Web 2 ever going to catch up with Web 3? Is that just a function of legacy tech companies, legacy internet companies?
Yeah, so in the interest of time and just to make this as simple as possible,
2 seconds later.
Looks like Mind Your Biz took down the episode, you know, that second section, man. It was the Seth show. When you said, yeah, I did a deep dive and I read the white paper, I was like, that's my Seth. Dang it. All right, so Mind Your Biz, feel free. Take us into the weekend, buddy.
I appreciate it, guys. It's always a pleasure coming on to Around the Blockchain. You hear me say it. I don't get tired of saying it. I'm genuinely humbled to be around these awesome people who are on the panel with me and to be here with the Bit Squad. You guys are amazing. The fact that you're here right now, listening to this panel, means that you are far more likely to make it, not financial advice. Do hit up sub.myb.lol and have a blessed weekend.